When Diana found the creature fallen from the storm, she was not looking. She was simply driving along the mountain road in Colorado, returning from her mother's funeral, when she saw something her brain refused to process correctly. A glow, a shape, something that didn't fit normal categories of perception. Diana was 52, a retired physicist, an absolute skeptic. She had spent 30 years in laboratories measuring what was measurable, rejecting what wasn't. The funeral that day had destroyed her. Structure of disbelief. Her mother had died believing in heaven, in angels, in reunion after death. Diana had spent 3 decades trying to convince her mother that everything was final death. No continuation, no comfort, just ending. And now her mother was dead, and Diana was alone on a mountain road with no communication afterward, no proof that the person who created her still existed in any form. The shape on the ground was luminous. That was the first thing Diana noticed. It didn't glow with reflected light. It emanated light, its own brightness, and when Diana stepped out of the car, knowing she shouldn't, knowing this violated every personal safety protocol, she saw that the creature was humanoid, but not human. It had limbs. It had what seemed to be a face, but there was something non-Euclidean about its geometry. Its angles did not meet the way human angles met. Its eyes were very large. Its eyes contained colors Diana had no names for. It is dying, Diana recognized, or whatever this is in critical condition. The creature opened its eyes. Well, opened is the wrong word. Expanded, revealed, and a voice came directly into Diana's mind, not through sound, but as thought that was not hers. "Help me," said the voice, "please. I am from so far away. I have traveled so far, and I have no more energy." Diana should have run, should have called someone, should have done anything rational, but instead she acted as what she really was, a woman whose entire life was about helping others understand the universe. Creature or not, this was life. This was consciousness, and it was suffering. She removed her jacket. She improvised a bed. She spent the next 4 hours simply sitting there in the rain while the creature slowly recovered. "You are from space?" Diana asked. "From a distant planet." "Not exactly," the creature responded. "It is not distance the way you understand it. It is dimensional. Difference. I am almost in the same location as you, but in a different frequency range. Normally, our realities do not overlap, but there are places where the barrier is thin, electromagnetic. Storms amplify the fissure. I was studying the storm and I was caught. I was pulled into your frequency, and the shock broke my vehicle. I fell." Diana processed this, studying, research, terms that made sense even if the premise was impossible. "How are you studying?" Diana asked. "What are you studying?" "You," the creature responded simply. "We study your species because you do something most conscious species do. Not. You believe in continuation. after death. You imagine existence after existence, and often you are correct, but not in the way you think. Diana felt her skepticism tremble. Heaven, she asked. Are you talking about heaven? Heaven is a primitive word for a much vaster concept, said the creature. Let me show you. The creature extended. Its hand, its finger touched Diana's face, and suddenly, Diana was no longer on the road. She was nowhere, or in a place universal. She was consciousness, without body, observing what seemed to be all realities at once. She saw people she knew, her mother, completely intact, but different, free from pain, free from limitation. Her mother was not in a traditional garden with harps. She was in a dimension of pure understanding where every thought became immediately experience, where every desire manifested instantly, where there was community of people who had lived and died before her, and they received her with complete recognition. Your heaven is real, the creature explained while Diana watched, but it is not where you think. It is not distant. It is in the same location as you, but in a frequency that only consciousness without body can access. When the body fails, consciousness is liberated, and then it perceives itself as it always was, energy that thinks, and it travels to the frequency that corresponds with its state of being. Diana saw more. She saw people in internal suffering appearing in dimensions of darkness, not punishment, just correspondence, frequency attracting similar frequency. You create your own destiny. After death, the creature continued, not through divine judgment, through where you are operating, frequency-wise when consciousness is liberated. If you spent life in fear and guilt, you emerge in reality of fear and guilt. If you spent life in love and understanding, you emerge in reality of love and understanding. You are not sent to a place. You gravitate to place that corresponds to your vibration. Diana was brought back to body. She was lying on the wet road, rain falling on her face. My mother, she whispered, is exactly where she should be. The creature responded, is in reality that her state of being created because she lived with faith, with hope, with love for those she left behind. Her frequency is high, very high. She is in the heaven she imagined. In life, not because God placed her there, because her own vibration carried her there. Diana wept, not from sadness, from liberation. Everything she had been taught as mere superstition revealed itself as truth, not as religious truth, as physical truth, as law of resonance, as scientific truth. That science had never been sophisticated enough to measure. For 3 days the creature remained, and each day Diana learned more about multiple realities, about how consciousness was fundamental to universe, not accidental, about how every thought was creator of reality both before and after death. And then the creature was well enough to leave. You saved my life, it said. You showed compassion when you could have, called authorities. You allowed truth to be shared when you could have refused. I was searching for an answer, Diana responded. You gave it to me. You searched because you already knew, said the creature. Deep down, all people know that death is not ending, that consciousness continues, that how you live determines how you die, and more importantly, determines how you exist after death. You can live in fear. You can spend life in guilt and self-punishment, and then you gravitate to reality of fear and guilt after death. Or you can live in love, in acceptance, in understanding, and then you gravitate to reality of love and light after death. There is no judgment, just physics, just law, just correspondence. The creature touched Diana's face one last time and disappeared in a flash of light that was both gentle and absolute. Diana drove home. She was no longer skeptical, but she was also not religious. She was a scientist who had seen truth through glass, and the truth was that death was transition, not ending, and that life mattered, because how you lived affected the eternity you would inhabit. She began to live differently. She stopped rationing grace and love out of fear they were weakness. She began operating in frequency of compassion, of forgiveness, of genuine hope. And over months, something strange began to happen. People began appearing in her life, people who shared her understanding, people who had also seen beyond the veil. Community began to form, not religious, scientific, but full of evidence of continuation after death. 6 months later, Diana was at a conference on consciousness and death. She was not the presenter, but while the presenter spoke about brain measurements and cessation of neural activity, Diana raised her hand. You are measuring the wrong instrument, she said. You are measuring brain, but brain is not consciousness. Brain is receiver. It is like measuring how well an antenna works to determine if radio exists. The signal exists, independent of the antenna. Consciousness exists independent of body. When you measure body dying, you are not measuring consciousness ceasing. You are measuring receiver failing. 3 people began to cry because Diana had. The presenter became defensive, but in the audience articulated something they always knew but could never prove. If this story resonated with you in any way, if it made you think about your own questions regarding death, consciousness, or what comes after, leave a comment below. Share your reflections. Tell us which moment in the story touched you most, or what thoughts it awakened. And if you appreciate speculative fiction that explores deep philosophical themes through narrative, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. We have more stories planned exploring consciousness, reality, and the great questions humanity has always asked. Thank you for watching. Until the next story,